Hello, everyone. Welcome to our final summer lunch and learn. I'm Prairey Walkling, Master Gardner Field Specialist, coming to you from Rapid City. And today our topic is tabling and answering questions from the public. And this might be really helpful for those new interns who haven't done this before or just starting, and can also be helpful for those who have done this, but maybe want to improve their skills in this area. County fairs are going on. We have the state fair coming up. So it's a timely topic, and kind of have to think on your feet because you never really know quite what to expect from the public. Our presenters today, and we will be recording this session and posting it for later. Our presenters are Amanda Bachmann, Urban Entomology Field Specialist based in Pierre, and Sara Ogen, SDSU Extension Horticulture Assistant. And part of Sara's role is to answer questions through the Pierre Garden Hotline. So she gets a lot of practice with that. And then she's also a Prairey Potters Master Gardener and has done some tabling with her club. So we are going to have more of a discussion today, but I will share a few slides and then we'll get going. So welcome, Sara and Amanda. So ask a master gardener is a really common phrase nationwide that you've probably heard. And so it's really seems to be popular at farmers markets and libraries where you're setting up every week or on like a regular kind of steady basis. They know where to expect you. And some states are even doing this online. The one on the left is Arizona, and they do a few times a year, they do a virtual session of Ask the Master Gardener, and they say, try to stump the Master Gardener. So thought that was interesting. We haven't tried that before, but we do offer branded the banners, tablecloths, and if you can wear your t-shirts or your aprons, then they can easily recognize your booth as a Master Gardener booth, associated with SDSU Extension. And the Northern Hills Club recently asked for a banner to, like a Ask a Master Gardener banner, outdoor banner that they could use at events. So we designed this banner. I think it's 3 foot wide, 5 foot in length, and it has grommets. And so if other clubs are in need of a banner like this for outdoor tables that you're doing, you can reach out to me about that. And our goals for Master Gardener booths and tables are really to help Extension reach a broader audience. We're not able to be at every county fair. So that's where our Master Gardeners can come in. I know we recently had an intern that set up at the Union County Fair and the Clay County Fair. And those are some places that we may not be able to get to every year. So if you can help us reach those audiences, that really helps us. We want to be providing those research-based answers. I know we're going to get into that a little more, and recruitment. So Roy's looking to build your clubs and to bring in some new Master Gardeners. So we have the brochures that tell about our program. If you need more of those, let me know. And you can tell them about the next training and kind of how it works if they're sound interested in becoming a Master Gardener. We also want to promote environmental stewardship. So this is minimizing the use of pesticides, like those IPM strategies that we learned about in training and since then, and attracting pollinators. And so it kind of goes back to our purpose of providing that current and research-based horticulture information. At the state fair, we do this, and I think it's a little, we may do it, some clubs may do it sometimes, some clubs may not, but if you can track booth visitors, that's helpful because we do track contacts to show our outreach that we're doing through our program. So at the state fair booth, we just use tally marks. It's not real sophisticated. We separate adult and youth visitors. If it's just too busy, an estimate can work, but we count an interaction as when you're verbally engaging with someone about either the program or horticulture. I guess even about the weather, or I guess that could count too. So you can give us an idea of how many people you reached at your booth. It also helps for planning for next year too, planning your supplies and handouts that you'll need. And just a few, this is guidance we give in training, and some of you, were maybe trained quite a while ago. So just some reminders here that it's fine to say, I'll check on that and get back to you. We don't do commercial promotions for your favorite greenhouse or seed company and things like that. Knowing when to refer out. If someone has a question about emerald ash borer, those should go straight to Dr. Ball. Bed bugs, poisonous spiders, you don't need to try to answer those. Just send them to Dr. Bachmann. And then we want to stay in the home horticulture lane, which is the focus of our program. So no commercial advice. That's anyone doing horticulture for profit. We do not teach foraging, so we do not want you to identify mushrooms or, edible plants. That's, we don't teach that. So you can steer clear of those questions. Canning, we also don't teach canning. So we have master food preservers, as you probably know, and don't provide home canning recipes unless they're vetted from a reputable source. We don't want to give advice about medicinal plants. We'll leave that to the medical professionals. Everyone's health situation is different, so it's just not a good idea. And marijuana or cannabis, we don't provide advice on growing these plants. Okay, so I think Sara is going to show some photos later of setting up her table and some objects that you can put on your table to kind of draw people in or spark conversation. If you have an insect collection, I've brought that before, and people really like to look at it. So if you have something like that, or insects in vials, common insects that people will see, you could preserve them in a vial so that you can show them what they look like. We've given out, if you have seeds to give out, people will often stop by and flip through some seeds, or even just some interesting seed pods like a milkweed pod or poppies, and then just like maybe a seasonal bouquet of whatever you're picking at that time. Can just kind of brighten up your table and maybe make people stop by and look at things. And, those don't really have to cost anything, or minimal cost. So, and then we have this research-based and not necessarily research-based. So those on the left are all good sources. Those on the right may be good sources, but those should be double-checked for your research-based advice. And I am going to turn it over to Amanda and Sara, and we're going to talk about tabling first. And effective tabling requires planning an engaging display, so we've kind of talked about, and then active interaction with the public. So let's talk about planning. When you're going to have a table at an event, how do you plan ahead, Amanda?
So I'll answer this for sort of two groups. When I am tabling as SDSU Extension Entomology, it's pretty much just me, so I can do whatever I want. It's a lot easier to coordinate. But when I am recruiting volunteers for events for the South Dakota Volunteer Naturalist to table at, we have a volunteer sign up sheet platform that we use to recruit volunteers and have them sign up for time slots. So that makes it easier for me to keep track of who's going to be where at what time versus trying to keep emails coordinated. So if your club has access to, like a sign up genius or, something of that ilk, that can be really useful. Otherwise, you do have to be on top of it on keeping track of your RSVPs and managing, making sure that you have a critical mass of volunteers for an event.
So who's staffing the booth?
Yes.
You're saying, okay. And do you have like a kit or something that you're taking along with you, or?
Yeah, so the volunteer naturalists, we have tabling kits. So if your club does a lot of tabling, it might be worth considering getting a clear tote and putting your tablecloth, your clipboards, your pens, your rocks, your binder clips, your stuff to keep your materials from flying away, the things that you sort of use every time, your contact cards, the recruitment postcards, putting that all in a kit, having a checklist for the kit, and then you can just take that from event to event. The thing with the kit, though, is that you do have to keep track of where it is. So we have our kits sort of at central locations in offices that, are open, a decent number of hours. For a club, though, if you've got one person that's in charge of the kit, it's either on them to make sure that they're also going to be at the event, or for one of the volunteers that's attending to make sure to get that kit and then also return that kit. So the kit can be really convenient, but there is sort of an added layer of keeping track of where it ends up so you don't lose it and then have to like buy another tablecloth or recreate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sara, how about you? How do you plan ahead when you're going to have a table at an event?
Yeah, our Prairie Potters Club has the benefit of having the Pure Regional Center, and we just keep all our stuff. They've graciously made a spot for us. So we have kind of a semi-kit. We have a little tote of things that we always want to bring, and then we might brainstorm at our meetings what other items would be appropriate for the event. If we're going to like an Aging Gracefully seminar, we might bring something different than we'd bring for the Oahe Downstream Butterfly Festival. So just talking about those things, and then we usually coordinate at our meetings who, before we accept an invitation to event, if we actually have members that are available for those dates, and coordinate, try to get 2 or 3 people for each event. So we are well represented. We can take breaks if we need to. And same things as Amanda.
Yeah. For your shifts, how often or how long do people usually stay at your booth? Like 2-hour shifts, or I think that's what we do for the state fair, 2 or 3 hours. What sort of shifts does your club usually use?
Well, it depends on the event. Some events are just 2 hours long, so we don't have to really worry about shifts. And then it just depends on availability. Like we did the spring fling at the East Pier, and I think that was a longer morning, but we just had 2 members who had availability that day, and they were able to stay the whole time. So it varies.
Okay.
If we have lots of members that want to participate, if we have, a 4-hour event and we have 10 members that want to participate, we would probably give everyone an hour shift then.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned breaks. It's nice to be able to do that you're not the only person at the booth and you can go do that if you need to. Amanda, how do you do shifts and how many people do you suggest in a booth at a time? I know it can depend on the event, but
Yeah, so much like Sarah said, really depends on the event. Most of the tabling events are usually about 4 to 5 hours, like thinking about things like Insect Fest, or even Little Wings on the Prairie, which is a little bit shorter. But I also factor in setup time and tear down time. So for the volunteer naturalists, if they're going to be at an event and I'm also there, I'm not able to help them because I'm doing my own booth. So they're responsible for setup and teardown. So I also include that when I am planning out what's a reasonable shift. Usually for something like Insect Fest, I split it up into 2 shifts. You've got setup, you're there for the first half, and then the second shift is second half, and then the teardown. I also will have a separate sign up for whoever is responsible for the kit to either, pick that up from the location and then return it to where they picked it up from. But yeah, having 2 people is really nice because sometimes I know, State Fair, the horticulture building can get a little slow at certain times of day or certain days of the week. And it can be nice to just have somebody there that you can chat with too, in addition to being able to spell each other to take breaks. So, depending on the size of the table, 2 to 3 people is really pretty perfect. Sometimes you can squeeze a fourth in there if you've got a lot of interest in volunteers, but you also don't want to have like a whole 10-person group behind the table because that could be kind of intimidating for people walking up to want to talk to you. So anywhere from 2 to 4, kind of depending on the interest and how long the event is. Because yeah, I do a lot of tables by myself, and it can be kind of tricky. Sometimes you just have to bail to go, use the restroom or grab a snack or something. So having at least 2 people is
Mhm.
really ideal. And it's okay, if your club doesn't have availability, if people aren't available for an event, it's okay if you're not at every event ever. But just also remember to, ask if it's something that you want to be at next year, to be like, hey, keep us on the mailing list. We can't do it this year, but we'd love to hear about the next opportunity you have.
yeah, that's great advice. Might not work every year, but keep us in your, you know, arsenal for next year, I guess. So do you have interactive elements at your booth that, and can you share some examples?
Can I go back quick to the people in the booth?
Yes.
I just know sometimes when you end up with 2 or 3 people, you might want to communicate within your group that are there that morning on like maybe what questions, like if we have a rose question in our booth and I know there's a rose expert in our group, I'm going to step back and defer to that rose expert. So kind of communicate with the people on your team at each event on who can answer what questions better. And then I sometimes can have a tendency to be a little bossy and take control of things. So like if I see there's a new intern or a trainee there, I have to really, try to pull back and let them have a chance and not just be the bossy person in the group doing everything, because I'm a firstborn, I fall into that role naturally. So just think about, how to represent your group as well, to let everyone participate and to have the best, I guess, resource or the best person answering my question.
Yeah. Who has what skills? That's good to know. Who's your vegetable person? Who's your rose person? And so on. And I like that you want to include the interns, but not make but have them feel supported as well. Like if they need help, you're there, but let them take some questions too. So back to those interactive elements. Do you have experience with that at your booth, Amanda? Do you use those in your booth?
It depends on the event. For things where the weather is cooperating, I will maybe bring a hissing cockroach or 5 to have for people to look at. I don't let people handle those, and I minimize my handling of them because I do get a tiny bit of an allergic reaction. So they're mostly just for people to look at. I also have the pinned insect collection, and then I have the entomology handouts for people to pick up. So, I'm more of like an informational booth. We've got usually a sign up sheet. For the volunteer naturalists, we have the sign up sheet for if people are interested. Also, sometimes we'll have an activity like the garden bingo, or something else, depending on sort of what event we're at and what we're trying to showcase. So if you do have things that you want people to be able to peruse, but maybe not take with them, like maybe some of the, when I do the SARE booth, I'll have the SARE books that have SDSU extension written on the front of them. And then like a little sign that says, you're welcome to peruse these, but please don't walk off with them. Like if you'd like a copy, shoot me an email and we can, I can see about getting one to you. So yeah, a lot of my stuff is more, here's publications, here are educational materials, but I know, Insect Fest, we have different organizations that will have a craft or some sort of hands-on activity for kids. So
Mhm.
that's sort of something when you're planning on what events you're doing, asking the organizer, is this families? Is it mostly adults? Is it strictly for kids? Because that really informs, if you should maybe think about springing for a craft or having something, more geared towards a youth audience.
Mhm. Can you tell me a little more about Garden Bingo?
So you can go online. There are free bingo generators where you can put in a whole bunch of terms and it will just make you random bingo cards. And so the garden bingo one is things like, take a picture of a bee on a flower or like find a butterfly or, read a plant tag and, tell me what it says or something like that. So just, you can depending on what setting you're in, so McCrory Gardens, there's all sorts of stuff that you can do there. But depending on your setting, you could sort of make up different things about the event and then just do, maybe like a little one that's, 3x3 or 4x4. And then it's just something, put your contact information for the club or whatever. And it's something that people can go do and maybe, come back and have a drawing for a prize if that's an option. Or if they bring back a completed card, give them a sticker. Stickers are super popular, so if you've got the budget for it, get some stickers.
So kind of like a scavenger hunt sort of
Yeah.
idea. Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you. Sara, do you have any interactive elements that you like to use at a booth?
We like to bring, since we are a Master Gardener Club, it's always nice to have live plants to bring along to catch people's eye, to talk about, especially when you're doing a pollinator event, to show just some examples. When we did an aging gracefully booth, we brought like some ergonomic tools just to show people what they could look for. It does help to have something to talk about, to show. It helps draw people in to have that those props handy.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't know you did a aging gracefully booth. Did you just hear about that and ask?
It's been several years since we did it. There was the community, some community organization in Pure did it, and we went to it. So, but they haven't had it for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. But it was a nice event.
Mm-hmm. But an example of it doesn't have to be really horticulture focused event. It could even be more of a community event, and you're just bringing that in to the event. Okay, thanks. Let's see. How do you actively engage with the public at your booth? Are you waiting for them to come to you, or are you saying hello to them? How do you handle that?
So there's a real big spectrum for anyone who's been to the state fair and walked through like the expo buildings. You've got the people that are trying to sell stuff and they are coming out and like giving you the hook and like dragging you in. So like you don't need to do that. I find I always have like a chair at the event, but I find I generally end up standing for most of the event because then you're more at eye level with people,
Mhm.
to be able to sort of initiate a conversation. So as somebody who is an introvert, these events can be super draining. So I totally get that, which is also why having shifts and other volunteers with you can really help to like lighten the emotional load. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
just about, making eye contact, smiling. If they, swing by and are looking at something at booth, be like, oh, is there any questions you have or, anything, that I can help you find or, help you answer, wear your name tag so that people can be like, oh, know who you are kind of thing. But yeah, it's just about being generally approachable. Um, and yeah, I know some folks, and one thing too, State Fair is a great place, or Brown County Fair, any of the larger fairs, to kind of like scope out how people are sort of stocking their booths, because there are the taller collapsible like director chairs, so you can still be sitting but also be at eye level. So that might be something too to consider
Invest
to
in.
make it, to make it a little more comfortable. Because yeah, otherwise I find I never sit down because I'm, trying to be sort of more approachable and be able to make eye contact with people.
We do have one of those chairs that we use at the stock show, and I never really thought about how you're more at eye level and of people walking by. Yeah.
Yeah, and anything you can do to kind of add layers to your table. So for folks that have seen my insect collection, I have the sort of stand that it's tilted up instead of just being flat on the table. So that makes it easier to see for folks that are passing by. If you have any vertical stands for brochures, that can be really useful. Obviously, wind can be a factor, but anything that you can add sort of vertically to your table. And I know Sarah's got a picture of their booths from the Little Wings on the Prairie, but also having those like vases or containers of fresh flowers. Those are a great conversation starter. But just think about how you're, walk up to your booth and take a look at how it's set up. Because a lot of times if we just have a bunch of flat stuff on the table, that's not going to be super engaging or, draw people in. So just think about where you can maybe pick up some of those like easels or stands. They might be lurking in your extension office that you can borrow, or a county office, or maybe, you can scope some out from like a local business and see if they have any that they are looking to get rid of. But those can be super handy. I've got a pile of them that I use for my Sara events.
Yeah, I like that. If it's on the table, they can't really see it unless they walk up very close to see what it is. Sara, any tips?
Yeah, I think the eye contact is a good one, and just have a question ready as people are walking by. They might not know what to ask. So if are you interested in planting for pollinators? What are you growing in your garden? Have you noticed XYZ in your garden? If it's blossom end rot season, or if it's squash bug season, or just have a couple questions to engage. If they're walking by fairly quickly, they might not process what kind of questions they might have, and you can kind of encourage some dialogue. And maybe if they have a question that just you can draw out and help them solve a problem that wasn't at the top or forefront of their mind.
Yeah. And then what handouts or giveaway materials do you recommend?
I mean, I will say we've got a bunch of extension publications of various things. So, if you ever need any of the entomology publications, let me know. We'll figure out how to get them to you. But yeah, having, like the postcard or something with your contact information. I know QR codes are really useful for like a certain generation. So having, the QR code for your website or Facebook group or whatever, on something that's vertical that people can scan can be really helpful. And yeah, honestly, kids love stickers, adults love stickers, so that can be an easy kind of giveaway item that's sort of a reasonable cost. But yeah, and then I've, going to some of the various spring events where folks just have like all the extra seed catalogs to like share, or, the seed packets, or, something thematically and event appropriate.
Yeah. Sara, any giveaways or handouts that are really popular at your booth?
Yeah, it's seeds. People like free seeds. If you have they really like that. So yeah, I think otherwise Amanda covered.
And generally, if I have hissing cockroaches with me and you ask really nicely, I'll give them to you. I have so many, they just had more babies.
That's very interactive.
Yeah, super interactive. Like instead of going to the county fair and getting a goldfish, you want to come to Insect Fest and get a hissing cockroach? I can hook you up.
All right. Well, and then my last question about tabling, unless Sara maybe wants to share some photos of tables that she's done, is give us your top do's and don'ts when you're tabling an event. Top do's and don'ts.
I mean, do bring a water bottle and like an emergency granola bar, because you never know if you're going to be able to actually get away for food, or you don't want to be hangry at the booth. So, wear comfortable shoes, wear comfortable clothes, like don't stress out about it. And I think, and my mom is a master gardener in Center County, and I know she can get really stressed out about like answering people's questions and like being able to say, hey, I don't know, but I know who will, like, let me get you in touch with them, or like, let me take your question and contact information, and we'll get back to you with an answer, is an absolutely acceptable response. So if you have trouble saying no to people, practice that response in the mirror, because we'd much rather have you send a question to us, or like, email me a bug picture, instead of you trying to make a diagnosis on the spot and, it going sideways. So yeah, make sure to, take stuff so that you're comfortable, be confident saying no. And yeah, and if something happens like the day of and you're like under the weather, or just, you know, sick or whatever, find a substitute. Don't go and like sneeze on everybody and all of the giveaways. So, just take care of yourself. And yeah, hopefully your club can kind of cultivate an energy of wanting to be at these public facing events. One thing I tell the volunteer naturalists a lot is that, we are at these events so people know about us, and so that our organizations know that we're worth supporting and investing in. And also, you guys, we can't see everybody in South Dakota. Like, I can't be at every county fair, but you folks are our sort of trainers that we've trained to get out there and get the extension information, deeper into communities. So we really appreciate what you're able to do when it comes to tabling, and we're here to help you, get the resources that you need, or sort of direct you to some good places for, supplies or that kind of stuff, and just some general encouragement to, go out there and engage with your community.
Awesome. Sara, do you have any do's and don'ts to share?
Yeah, I think it's don't try to take too much. Like, if you're going to a spring event, focus on what's happening in the spring, like seeds and how to start seeds. If you're going to a fall event, you don't need to bring all your seed starting stuff. That's kind of when you kind of bring your sanitation and your fall to-do list, or your fall things like that. So don't try to encompass every garden scenario at an event, because you're not going to have room on your table for all those.
I like the idea of focusing it seasonally, and how you mentioned, like, you could be scouting for squash bugs right now, looking for those eggs, telling people what they can be looking for in their garden, and what they can, their to-do list, like you mentioned. And you know what I forgot to do is to mention that we have, if you have questions today, you can type those in the chat. The chat is open. Send it to everyone, or that's what my setting is. Or you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And if you have a question for Sara or Amanda or me, we would be happy to get to those. If there's if you have tabling questions or things that have come up that you weren't sure how to handle, or if you have tips from your club, this is a great time to share those. So,
and Sara, your idea of the sort of thematically appropriate things for folks that might have the garden journals, if you are stuck and need to brainstorm ideas, just flip to whatever month your event is in the garden journal, and that can be a really good jumping off point.
It's a great idea.
Especially for the master gardeners who do farmers markets every week. You might want to just vary what you bring by season.
Mm-hmm. And yes, I know here they do the zucchini races once a year. And that might be fun to bring to other events or farmers markets. So if you are interested in learning more about how to do a zucchini race, you could talk to Mary Dybert, who coordinates their farmers market booth. And there are just some really fun ideas like that out there that we could be sharing with each other. Sara, do you want to show us any of your tables? I think you had a kind of a do and a don't table.
Sure. Let's see.
Or you learned from the first year.
Yeah, so that I think that's kind of our don't picture. It looks pretty cluttered. We got a box of supplies from the coordinator and we didn't know what to do with all these things. So we're kind of spread all out. Things are blowing around. I mean, we have our pretty bouquet of flowers there, but it's kind of hard to see in all the clutter. So
yeah.
Did it switch pictures?
Not yet.
And this is at the insect festival?
Wings on the Prairie at a
The Wings on the Prairie.
Yep.
There you go, it switched.
Okay, so this is from this year. We kind of cleared off the table a little bit. We had a few more hands-on things for the kids to grab. And you can see we didn't bring a tablecloth because it was rainy and we don't know what size table we're going to get, but we have all our extra stuff tucked under the table so we can easily grab that if we have the need for stuff. So
what are in those little bowls?
Oh, that was our pollinator activity. We made these little popsicle stick bees with fuzzy chenille stem legs, and they went from bowl to bowl pollinating, and you could see the cross pollination. It was really cute. The kids had fun with it.
And so even just looking at a photo, I'm like, what's in that bowl? So yeah, just having things like that really kind of draw your eye and make you want to learn more about what's going on here at this booth. And then did you have an example of an indoor table too?
Yeah, let's see. And this was our booth at an indoor event, and we had the blue tablecloth is pretty striking. People can see that, and this was in the spring, and so you can see the QR codes on the table. They really wanted to promote the How to Grow It series on the SDSU Extension webpage, but instead of printing out a How to Grow It on everything from asparagus to zucchini, they have the QR code sheet, so you could pull up that How to Grow It homepage and find the specific vegetable that you wanted to grow.
Yeah, that looks really nice. What event was this?
This was Spring Fling at a local greenhouse.
Oh, okay.
And so our Prairey Potters group had their yellow aprons on, so you can pick them out in the crowd. They did take breaks, which was good. But you can see Geraldine sitting, out on the front side of the table to talk with people as they come by. And
yeah. Thanks for showing those examples. And then we'll get a little bit into answering questions. And what sort of questions do you hear most often at your booths? Amanda?
I get a lot of people's insect trauma. So especially with the pinned collection, or people saying like, oh, I made this, I had to make an insect collection and then, tell me about whatever. But yeah, no, a lot of insect trauma. So I try to, get people to be more cool with insects. But yeah, and sometimes people will be like, oh, they've got a question about they're like, oh, I saw this insect. And that's also why I have the pin collection, so they can point to maybe something close to what they saw versus trying to, describe it to me without any sort of picture or sample. But yeah, and then, when I have the SARE booth, it's, folks asking me about, maybe like what even is there, and, about the resources that are available. So I have my little, elevator spiel for that as well. So yeah, like, have your elevator pitch for the Master Gardener Club of like, hey, training's going to be like, pick the closest city, and, our club meets, monthly or whatever. And, this is our, the big events that we do are X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Your elevator pitch, like your couple of sentences that you want to share about your club to make people want to join the club, right? Or to make them want to become a Master Gardener. What questions do you hear a lot, Sarah? Probably not insect trauma.
Right now.
Or maybe, I don't know.
People will ask what a certain plant is. They might ask what is wrong with a certain plant, or if the three little holes in it are going to decimate their whole plant, or what they should do about when they see things in the garden. On the garden hotline, one of the questions that we get a lot of, and we get it occasionally at booths too, is possible herbicide damage. And that's kind of a tricky one that you have to handle that with a lot of care, because it's edible food that people are consuming. And so yeah, that's one I do have a canned response for when somebody asks about herbicide damage.
Oh, can you share your canned response with us?
I can. So usually they'll have a picture or they'll describe something, and you always use the term possible. That does indicate possible herbicide damage, and it can come from a variety of sources. So it could be a drift, it could be something you sprayed yourself, it could be contamination from the soil or compost. And badly damaged plants, is best to replace them. Plants with mild twisting may grow out of it, but I can't advise you to eat anything because we don't know what chemical or how much. And then if they know what chemical they applied because they were the ones who did it, then they can check the labels and see if there's any food uses are permitted with that chemical, so they would know if they can eat the food safely. And then I refer them to the National Pesticide Information Center. There's a great article, and I can probably put that in the chat. I use that one. I use that a lot.
Yeah, that's a great response to a hard question.
Yep, and follow it up with, they'll have to make their own decision. I can't recommend they eat it or not eat it. They have to choose the level of risk they're comfortable with.
And I like the use of the word possible, because a lot of things you can't know with 100% certainty unless you're sending it into the diagnostic lab. Amanda, do you have anything to add to that response when you get that?
I was gonna say that's a good one. And similar kind of thing to also with like, asking about like foraging, because we don't cover that in the Master Gardener training. There are resources in South Dakota, like maybe, Game Fish and Parks and some other groups that do things like that. But yeah, like you kind of have to have your hand responses, be like, that's not an area we cover. Like, that's not something I can advise you on.
Mm-hmm.
We can definitely answer like, why are mushrooms showing up in my lawn? And that can be like, oh, did you take a tree out? Do you have like decomposing organic matter? Like has there been a lot of rain? Are you irrigating your lawn? Like those are all reasons why mushrooms can show up, but we are not the ones that are going to tell you if you can eat those mushrooms.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. How So you kind of just did this, but how do you communicate research-based answers to people? Do you have any tips on that?
I pretty much tell people, I'm like, hey, don't pick, don't choose an insect repellent or, an herbicide formulation based off of a, recipe that you found on social media. So I try to be diplomatic and not call out certain platforms versus others because they can all be their own flavor of terrible for, not sharing research-based information. But yeah, folks will be like, oh, my grandmother used that recipe. It's like, great, super glad that nobody in your family died of botulism, but here is a better option.
Mhm.
You just really don't want to get into an argument with somebody. Like,
Right.
you can give them the information, but you can't make them use it. So you just kind of have to let that go sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sarah, any advice for communicating research-based answers?
Yeah, kind of following up on what Amanda said, they might have got this recipe from someone. You don't want to make them feel like they're absolute idiots for doing this. You want to, and so I usually just kind of, well, I'm from extension, so I'm going to tell you, you need to read and follow label directions. If there's not a label on it, you don't know any directions on when to use it, how to use it. And so looking for research-based information from extension sites or the labels on products really is going to give you a guaranteed result, or you know what to expect from the result. Maybe not guarantee is not the right word. You can know what to expect because there has been research behind these methods.
And it's for that plant and that problem, right? If it's on the label. Otherwise, you're just taking information that, yeah. Okay, so photos. Are photos helpful? I mean, I think they are. But what are you looking for when they're showing you photos? Or are photos enough to be able to answer some of these questions?
Depends on the problem. Usually
Yeah.
with, a picture of an insect, it can be really useful to have a photo. Sometimes though, I do need the body, especially when it's like the whole bat bug, bedbug situation. For things that are very small, having the actual specimen can be much more useful. And on the plant side, we have the plant diagnostic clinic. They can do a lot via photos because they do see a lot of things, but for some things, like if you are trying to actually diagnose like a virus or bacteria or a fungus, they would actually need a physical sample to definitively diagnose some of those things.
Yeah, I
Sarah,
definitely
go ahead.
agree that like photos can get you, they're better than nothing, but they can't hit everything. And so then again, I always, try to phrase my answer. Well, from the photo, it looks, this is looking like, but you could send it to the lab for testing, or these other factors might not be visible in a photo. So it's always based on, well, from this photo, I would say this is the most likely situation or scenario that is wrong with your plant. And then usually I'll say, if it's something really tricky and I need to pass it on to like Dr. Ball or to Amanda, I'll be like, from the photo, this is what I think. I'm gonna confer with, Dr. Ball, and if he has a different diagnosis, I'll let you know. And just to kind of leave it like there's other potential things out there that could be wrong besides what this picture shows.
Yeah. That's some good phrasing. Based on this photo, I think it's most likely this. I like that. Let's see. And do's and don'ts. when answering questions from the public, do you have some do's and don'ts to share?
I mean, don't get out over your skis. Again, get comfortable with saying, I don't know. I would much rather you say, I don't know, and direct them to another Master Gardener or another one of us on the SDSU Extension Horticulture team than giving somebody incorrect information. Just like that's kind of the biggest thing. You guys have had a lot of training, and that can be, both overwhelming, but also gives you more of a sense of you kind of know what you don't know. You might be in like, I don't know anything about roses. I don't grow them. I
Mhm.
I don't answer rose questions really, unless it's like, what's this bug that's on a rose? And then it's usually a Japanese beetle. But, you know, it's okay to have your area of expertise and like direct people, to other folks if it's a question that's outside of that. So, you've got the garden hotline to send people to. We've got the Ask Extension portal that you can submit questions through that way. You can even help direct people to the Ask Extension portal, like at your event, and have them like, oh, you've got a picture? Like, here, let's scan this QR code and this is where you can submit it and it will go, directly to, Christine or Rhoda, or not Rhoda anymore, she retired, but things like that. So, just confidence is good. Overconfidence can be a problem.
Sara, anything to add?
Yeah, and just knowing what's going on in your region, like this year we had that cold snap in May. And so a lot of, people are like, well, is this herbicide injury? Well, no, it's probably from the cold snap. Maple trees or even tomatoes are going to be doing weird things because of that cold snap. So kind of knowing those things, early August, you're going to get those blossom end rot questions. So towards the end of, now it's like, can my plant survive these leaf spots? And yeah, generally they can. So just knowing like what to expect during each season, familiarizing yourself with the problems that are recurring every season specifically.
Very good advice. I remember Rhoda talking a lot about abiotic and environmental problems that's where your mind should go first, kind of, unless it's really obviously aster yellows or something.
And even then, sometimes it's not really obviously aster
No,
yellows because that one
true.
can be sneaky.
Yeah. Yes, good. Go to those, think about the abiotic and environmental factors first, and then then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of famous ones are people asking, like, why is my tree dying? And it's like, well, depending on the year or what area of South Dakota they're in, the reason it's dying is because they didn't water it. Like that's kind of one of the biggest things, because I started with SDSU Extension in 2013, which was right after the 2012 drought. And so that next year, everyone's like, well, why is this dead? And it's like, I heard you guys didn't get any rain last year. So yeah, because when people ask me questions, it's always like, I get a picture of a damaged plant and it's like, what bug did this? And I'm like, fun story. It's actually might not have been an insect. So there was just a question about lilacs and it turns out it was in the tree pest alert. So that's another great resource to kind of keep up with the, current happenings.
Yes, those are coming out every week during the growing season. And there's a lot of what is Dr. Ball seeing out in all these different communities. And I put the widget in the chat, but I'm just going to show it to you really quick. That we do encourage you to put these, if it's a question that is beyond your expertise, please put it in here. And here's the garden hotline information. And so all you have to do is give your question a title, type your question, select your county, and then the images are optional. You can upload up to 3 photos. And I mean, you could do this for them, or they can do this, but you can tell them this process, and then they just need their name and their email. And they have an option to keep their question private, I guess, and then submit. And that's all there is to it. So, and it's, to find that page, it's problems and solutions. If you do SDSU problems and solutions, it should pop right up for you. Any final words of wisdom for us? We've got about 5 minutes on tabling or answering questions.
I mean, just, be willing to get out there. We do, like I said earlier, really appreciate clubs being able to participate in things like local farmers markets, county fairs, and even for things like farmers markets, even if the farmers market is every week, maybe it makes more sense for you guys to go once a month. And like, that's great. I don't think we have any sort of, metric or expectation that you have to hit for tabling events. Any of them help out with the overall mission of SDSU Extension and SDSU Extension Master Gardeners. So thank you for, taking the time to consider tabling and to table if you have already. It's just, a good way to get our brand, our logo, our expertise out there into more communities. So, hopefully this encourages some more folks to think that, hey, I can do tabling and it's not, big, intimidating and scary. Find your tabling buddy and, take the Master Gardener, mission to an event.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, Sara.
These events are a great opportunity for you to learn as well. Like if there are questions that you don't know the answer to, you get then the opportunity to go research them and learn something that maybe you didn't know. So I think it's a great, I really enjoy that aspect of it. It's like, oh, well, I didn't know that was a thing. So now I know all about Astor's yellow. Like last week I didn't know much about it. This week, oh look, now I see it. Now I see it in my cucumbers. Yay!
Oh no!
you learn things. So it's so even when even if you don't have all the answers, you come away learning something. So I think that's very beneficial.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yes, thank you to all the Master Gardeners who table, who work those farmers markets and interact with the public like that. We do appreciate it. And I also think you're going to get better at it. The more you do it, your first year, you're maybe, I've, was kind of listening to the other Master Gardeners and how they were answering the questions and learning from them. And you're going to get better at it and feel more comfortable the more you do it. And it might not be for everyone, you might find another way to serve your club, but for those of you who do enjoy the public, and it is really good experience, and you, like Sara said, I bet you learn something about every time, something new from the people that are coming by. So, and don't feel bad if you don't know what it is. There's a million plants out there. We can't know them all. So, yeah. And then I just have a couple quick reminders to share. Was there something in the chat? Was there a question or?
Nope.
No. Okay. Comment. All right. So just a few quick reminders with our last couple minutes here. Gold Star nominations. We've got a lot of Gold Star nominations this year. So good job, everyone. But if you still have one to send in, those are due on Friday, the 15th. We have the annual update registration is open. The deadline to register is September 12th. The deadline for your hotel, if you want to stay at the Ramkota, where the conference is August 26th. So if you want to come, get your reservations made and get registered, and select your meals and all that. State Fair is coming up the end of August and then Labor Day weekend. If you want to work the booth for some hours, There's some great tabling experience for you right there. So you sign up on using Better Impact, where you report your hours, or the app, whichever you use. You can sign up right there. And Garden Hour continues, so you can tune in to that on Tuesday nights. We have I can't see what it's called, Wool as a Soil Additive Project. That's coming up on Friday in Hot Springs, if you're interested in that. And we did have an Earl Daily grant that was involved with that project. This Saturday, the Pennington County Master Gardeners are harvesting carrots at Storybook Island from Mr. McGregor's garden. That's an event you could go to or help at if you're in the area. Minnehaha is having a Masters in the Garden at, I believe it's Cammie Jacobson's house. That's free, coming up on Monday if you'd like to tour that garden or in Sioux Falls. Teaching garden tours continue in Sioux Falls at the Mary Jo Wagner Arboretum. They'll have one in September and one in October. So those are more opportunities. And they're having Insect Festival. I'm sure Amanda will be there, I think. September 6th at McCrory Gardens. Lots of fun activities going on there. There's a Harvest Festival happening in Box Elder. And the Pennington County Master Gardeners are going to have a table at that event. And then there's a garden talk in Lead with the Northern Hills Master Gardeners. And of course, the conference. We hope to see you to celebrate our 40th anniversary. And then in Yankton, through the Yankton Seed Library, Missouri Valley Master Gardeners have these talks coming up in September and October. And I think that's all. Yeah, that's something else. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to Amanda and Sara and Matt for the tech support today, and have a great week. Thanks.